Let's put that down. Oh, let me make sure my phone is off. We don't want that ringing in the middle. Cool. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I realized I was on my way here and I'm like, I forgot to put my name on my PowerPoint. But I have cards and stuff afterwards. So I'm Kristin Schomaker. And I'm honored to be in this show. If you've seen the show, I have the Yogurtland spoons back in the corner back there. And I have a picture of them here and I'll talk about it. But I figured I'd talk a little bit about kind of my art career, what my art is about, and then the various businesses that I've had. And to start off with, I was actually in the medical field for a long time. So just so you kind of get an idea, I had a totally different job. You know, growing up, I was like a candy striper, if you guys remember that term, a junior volunteer when I was 14 years old. And then I was lucky enough to get a job in a hospital after that when I was in high school and figuring out what I wanted to do in my life. And I didn't know I wanted to be an artist officially until like 10, 15 years later, until I was older. And I'm not afraid to admit I'm 46, and I officially started called myself an artist and taking classes about 21 years ago. So it was like later in life. So if you're still starting your art career, there's still time. So I wanted to show these because I wanted to start off kind of on a fun, inspirational note. A friend of mine that I met in Second Life, and I'll talk about that in a second. Second Life's an online virtual world that I did my master's thesis in. We used to talk about your career, and he kind of really inspired me and pushed me to go confidently in the direction of my dreams. And he used to always quote that to me, and he's like, I could see this happening to you. And so I really like to share that because it's it's manifestation. You put it in your head and make things happen, and they do. And I totally believe that. I was thinking about ice cream the other day, and it happened. So Tony knows that's not a stretch. But, so kind of to start off with, everything I'm going to show I realize really has to do with, my art is life. I'm immersed in art. And the first picture there is a picture from, I think I was like 11 or 12, and that's my brother and my mom. And I used to carry around this picture in my calendar in an envelope, along with a bunch of my other skinny pictures. As you can see, I'm not thin. I'm not skinny. I am overweight, I'm plus size, I'm curvy, I'm short. But I used to look at that picture and think, oh my God, I had the most beautiful legs. I was tall and thin and I thought I was fat. That's why I'm wearing a t-shirt over my bathing suit. And I was going to do a project that was called I Thought I Was Fat, or something like that. And so I still keep this picture. Actually, eventually I shredded it. And I'll talk about that. That's another project I did. The other two pictures were I used to also carry with me, and they were also my skinny pictures. But I also wanted to share, the middle one is, that was I think 98, when my first painting class. I had an apartment. It was my dining room that I used as my studio, and I had hair, as you can see. I loved my hair then too, and sometimes I really miss it. But I was an early artist, and I was happy. And I look back on that and think, not much has changed except for the hair. And then the third one there is me, and I went to Antelope Valley College. I grew up in the Antelope Valley, and that was an early mixed media piece that I did that I still have and love, and also when I had hair. And so I just kind of wanted to show you my younger days when I was doing some early art. And this is a few years ago. This is my studio with a lot of my paintings. I actually don't paint as much anymore, but I'm going to get back into it. But I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what I do now and where I've been and where I'm going. And the studio still, my bed and bookshelf and stuff are in the same way, but it has changed quite a bit. And I have a picture I took this morning so you could see the mess that it is today. But just so you can kind of get an idea. This is actually today. So I got a new art studio, a second art studio across the street at Keystone Art Space in downtown LA. So I've been packing everything up and organizing. I also wanted to share this because I'm an art collector too. I am a huge supporter of buying, other artists' work or trading or bartering somehow. And I love art. I mean, whether I create it or just like looking, I mean, the show is so inspiring, looking at what others, other artists create, that, it is an obsession or an addiction, or I will admit, but my walls, like the other wall, is also covered in the art I create. Hence why I actually need my own art studio, because I don't have any white walls to, hang up my own work. And I need a space where I can escape, and just think about my own work. So, because my office is here, I work from home, and so I can't go anywhere to work per se. So, so you can kind of see, this is probably what my brain looks like too. So many things going on. But part of my art practice, I'm a painter. I started out as a painter, maybe a painting too. I am actually painting now. I have been, and I'll talk about that too. But then, like, that painting is one of my favorites. It's from 1998. I did several in the series, and then I cut them up. So I sold a bunch of them, and then one day, surrounding my current work is all about body image and the idea of being plus size, and thinking about plastic surgery and cutting up the body. And I mean, in a shorter kind of idea, my paintings became skins they were on my avatars, and I'll show you a picture of that in a second. But then, so the idea of cutting them up, like liposuction or plastic surgery or things like that. And so I cut them up and created the sculpture. And there's actually about 40 different paintings stacked on that chair. And that one I didn't cut up because it was one of my favorites. But just so you can kind of get an idea. And for my master's thesis, I was in Second Life, which is an online virtual world where you create an avatar. It's kind of like if you're on Facebook, if you're on any place where you have a profile picture, like that's basically your avatar. That's how you're represented online. Second Life, in a way, it's like an online game where you go in and create a character. So my character, she mainly looked like the one on the right. She was tall, thin, blonde, beautiful, kind of everything I thought I wasn't. And so when I went into the master's program, my professor at Cal State Northridge asked me, why does your avatar look like that? And I really had to think about it. And as I wrote in my journal and sketched and just I delved deep, I realized I had an eating disorder. And I realized, it had a lot to do with my own self-esteem and with being overweight. And so everything since then, and that was in 2008, so 11 years ago, everything since then has been centered around my body and centered around body image and self-worth, and sometimes learning to love my body. And a current project I'll show you in just a second. And before we get there, just so you know, there is nudity. So, it's an education for me. It challenges me, and I change and I grow and then I revert throughout the whole project, throughout everything I do. It's a form of art therapy. But so this is kind of the project that started it all. And for my master's thesis, I actually transformed into my avatar. And I'm just showing you one section, but I actually went shopping and bought clothes that she would wear. My hair was darker and I got it platinum blonde. My avatar had a nose ring and I went and got my nose pierced. And we videotaped it and photographed it, and I have a video of it on my website. And in the end, I didn't feel any better being her. So that was like a learning experience. There was like this balance in between. And those two pictures are actually the balance. And I still, I look at that and I'm like, wow, I was thinner back then. So we're always talking about our bodies. And part of the project, I created comics where it was called the Gracie Kendall Project, because my avatar's name is Gracie Kendall. And my professor had like urged me to have these conversations. And I'm like, yeah, but isn't that a little psycho, having this? And, I realized we all have these voices in our head, whether we admit it or not. And that's who she was, like that id and ego. And so, focusing on my eating disorder, I would take pictures of myself and of her every day for 159 days. Whether we were exercising together, going to art openings, she would do the same thing in her world. And I created these comics, and they're all on my website also. But this is kind of just one where, she's questioning what I'm doing, eating all this ice cream. And Baskin-Robbins was my binge food for a long time, and then it became Yogurtland, hence the Yogurtland spoons in the show. So what happened was I turned my avatar into my painting. So I used the painting that I showed at the beginning as a skin on my avatar, who's on the far right, my right. But I brought her into real life because I wanted to mix realities. I wanted to show the hybridity of the virtual and physical worlds. So I started painting mannequins in the same style. And, you can kind of see, kind of a good example of how that turned out. I did 8 mannequins total, and the one there is actually the only one left. Eventually, I cut up all of they were fiberglass mannequins. I cut them all up and put them in the jars. So the project for the mannequins, it was called A Comfortable Skin, because we all talk about being comfortable in our own skin. So the installation on the wall is actually called An Uncomfortable Skin, kind of playing off of that. So I actually, I'm even trying to think. I don't even remember. Did I cut her up too? Oh my gosh, I can't even remember now. Did I sell her? No, I don't. But now I don't remember where she went. But I also, yeah, exactly. Luckily, I live alone, so it doesn't matter what's in my fridge or freezer. But I also, you can see this car here, I started painting little kids' furniture because I'm a feminist, I believe in equality for all, and I wanted to talk about how little girls from an early age are often taught that being pretty is more important. It's not about their personality, it's not about their wit, it's not about their intellect. We buy these beauty salons and we buy these vanities, so they often, can like dress up and be princesses and be pretty. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that. The car, I was at a thrift store looking for furniture, for little girls' furniture. And it was a pink Corvette, that kids ride in. It was so cute. And I'm like, does that really work for my project? And this little boy runs up. He's like 4 or 5 years old, and he was so excited. He's like, a car. And his mom comes running after him, and he's like, no, that's for girls, because it was pink. And so I'm like, I have to buy it now. And so I painted it with my signature style. And I've actually thought about either cutting it up or taking it to an auto wreckage place and having it, but I haven't done it yet. So, and this is another view of my studio that you can kind of see it changes quite a bit. So continuing on with my project of shredding and cutting up, and I mentioned that I shredded some photos. I started shredding my skinny photos, and I called the project Losing Weight. And then I started thinking, I had boxes of like family photos and photos that I've just carried around with me every place I've moved. And I'm like, what am I doing with these? I don't even look at them anymore, along with negatives. My friends and I used to go to Walmart all the time and get, before digital, of course, we'd take in our rolls of film and, from friends, and I'm like, what am I doing with these? What does it mean that I'm holding on to this from my past? And there was a lot going on at the time, but one night, it was just, and this is what artists do sometimes, I was like, I need to shred it all. And so I took out my shredder and I burned it out actually in a couple of hours that night. But I took out my shredder and I just started shredding all of these photos, and I filmed it. I held up the photo, and I just put it in and kept, filming it. And so I created, I don't think I have the other video, but I have a video of it. And then they're filled with jars. I have 30 or 40 jars filled with the shredded photos and the negatives. And so some of those, they're gone, except for they're in the video. My mom she's like, oh my God, what did you do? Didn't you have a good childhood? And but the pictures are still in the video. So most of them anyway. So, and then that brings me to, this is one of my most recent projects. Like I said, I have an eating disorder, and Yogurtland is one of my binge foods, although I haven't had it in a while. But I started saving all the spoons, and it was growing and growing, and all of my friends started saving spoons for me and bringing them over, and then I started collecting them. And I even contacted Yogurtland. And this is like something that I tell in like my professional development talks, which I'm going to talk a little bit about in a few minutes too. Don't be afraid to ask. I contacted Yogurtland and said I'm doing this project. I sent them some photos of what I was doing, the spoons that I've collected. Asked them if they could send me, a few hundred, and they sent me like 300 Yogurtland spoons in this big box. It was so cool. I mean, this is like a picture of the box, but I've been vacuum sealing them because my work is about my eating disorder, and I use cans, or I use jars, that kind of seal and protect. And so I'm like, what else can I use? And then I thought of the idea of vacuum sealed bags that we often, you put food in and put it in the freezer. And so I started with like the photos, and then I actually started shredding all of my prints, all of my works on paper. I was just having a field day, just like shredding. And then I started vacuum sealing the Yogurtland spoons, and they became like these contained, whether it's memories or, I don't know, I'm still like figuring out what it means, but just like they're suffocating in there, which, for a long time I've been suffocating like with my eating disorder and in my body. So it's kind of a symbol of that. But then also, they mimic my paintings, which are very colorful and, circular. And so, there's something there too that I've been working through. This is the actual most recent project I'm working on. I started thinking about, or for a long time I've been thinking about it, but again, our self-worth and where we get our validation of our self-worth from. Our self-esteem, where does that come from? And oftentimes, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, oftentimes it's based on what we think how we think others perceive us. And so I thought it would be really interesting to invite artists to paint, draw, and photograph me so I could see myself through their eyes. And so these are just a few examples. I've had 6 or 7 so far. These are just a few examples. A painting here, the top one's a photograph. The bottom one is a photograph. It was just, we were mimicking Artemisia Gentileschi, who's a strong woman. And then the drawing, which is like 5 feet tall, which is amazing. So far, I mean, the work has been gorgeous. I still, when I look at the images, I see gorgeous paintings, but when I see my own body, I'm still not there yet. It's all about me learning to love my body and see like that beauty, but on a personal level, I still feel fat and I still feel overweight. And I realize, I'm not going to change overnight. It's a learning process. It's like, I don't know, there's still a lot more to it. The project is going to probably be another year. I'm actually talking with Cal State Los Angeles about a show, and we're going to have a catalog and an essay with it too. So there's going to be about 20 to 30 artists participating. So it's, it's exciting. So, oops, Along with being an artist, I'm also a curator. You know, something that David had talked about, I said, what do you want me to talk about for the, you know, for this talk? And he's like, you know, you're not only an artist, you do so many other things. And so, I mean, for me, it's all my art. In fact, I consider myself a cultural producer. Sharon Loudon wrote a book called Artist as Cultural Producer. And it's, I think, 40 essays by artists who do much more than just create art, you know, than just create paintings or sculptures. They curate shows, they, you know, put together spaces, they do so much. And that's exactly like where I am and who I feel I am. Excuse me. So these are just a couple of shows I've curated. One is called The Reality of Nature, which was all about the environment. It was a couple of years ago, and you know, of course, even today, the idea of climate change is even more, you know, larger. But I wanted to focus on artists whose work only talks about like science and nature, and that was at launch in Los Angeles. And then last year for Post at the Bendix Building in downtown LA, they have kamikaze shows. So in July, every day they have a different artist curator come in and put up a show. So I did one called Let Me Eat Cake, which is actually based off an artwork I did because of my eating disorder. And so I invited artists to create work based on dessert. And so there were 36 artists. This cake in the middle is actually a real cake. And we ate it at the end, and it was so good. But we also had a buffet of dessert that everybody brought in. And in fact, I'm going to be curating the same show in June at Blue Roof Studios in South Central LA. So I'm going to be putting a call out for that pretty soon. But and I'm going to do it again in Ventura in March because I think it's fun, and art should be fun. I mean, you know, there's so many things that it should be, but fun is definitely one of them. And I love putting together shows like that. So the other things I do, and these are, you know, Tony is actually my graphic designer, and he created all of these logos. 5 years ago, almost to the day, I created Shoebox PR, which is an online, or it's a marketing company for artists. I actually, because I'm an artist, I understand what artists need. And it started because I had a solo show at the Los Angeles Art Association that I didn't do any PR for. I didn't do any marketing for it. And, you know, I realized when it was over, it was a cutting edge show using Second Life, that I should have done marketing for it. You know, I should have learned how. So after the show, I started studying. I started reading all the business of art books. I started going to workshops and panels and realizing that being an artist in the 21st century is not just about creating the work. You know, you have to, like, 50% of it is putting yourself out there, whether it's social media, whether it's getting press. You know, it's a lot of work. And because of my medical field, like, which was mostly in administration, I am very lucky to have kind of that organizational administrative background where I'm able to, like, bring that to everything else I do besides creating the work. So we started off promoting events, and then I realized, like, artists need more than that. They need, almost like, today I look at it as life coach, a life coach for artists, you know, helping them get organized, helping them figure out their goals, their path, you know, whatever it is they need, critique of their work. And so we're kind of, you know, I call it a support network for artists. And we have, like, monthly meetings where we all get together. My biggest thing throughout everything I do is about community. It's about bringing artists together, bringing people together, you know, from your local community, or, you know, artists that don't know each other. I put a meetup group together in Palm Springs because I knew several artists there that didn't know each other. I'm like, you guys have got to meet, you know, and get together. And then they were gonna, you know, start meeting regularly. So I'm all about facilitating and organizing and doing things like that. So that kind of came from Shoebox. And 5 years later, we work with artists on a monthly basis, along with promoting shows. From Shoebox PR, I created Shoebox Projects, which is actually a space in my, let's see, I could show you. This is a space in my loft at the brewery. On the other side of the wall is where I live and work. I have residencies. I normally do 3 or 6 weeks residencies there where the artists actually come and create work in the space and then have a show at the end. Sometimes I'll do other shows also, but I have a couple of other shows. This was the very first one where the artists Susan and Jennifer created this huge structure, like this installation that you walk through. It was really fantastic. So, and then let's see. And then from that, I also started, and I should have put the thing up there, but the logo, the Shed Collective. I'm in what's called the Shed Collective, which a few of my friends and I created, like we all have like these alternative spaces that we wanted to show work. So they have sheds in their backyard, and I have my broom closet. So I'm like, why not, give artists another opportunity to show? And artists can show anywhere, not just like the closet. But I was going to tell you earlier, I just went to the Spring Break Art Fair. There's a curator who uses his car. And what he does is, like, the work is in the car, and then he goes around and picks up people and drives them around, and that's the show. I mean, that's like individually. Like, there's so many cool things that you could do, that artists can do out there. So this is my broom closet. It's like 24 by 20 inches. And actually you can get inside and shut the door. The first one's a little tight. That was Kate Carvallis. She did assemblage. Kim Abeleys did the middle installation, and she actually has a piece in the show where you actually get in and there's sound, and it's almost like a confessional. It's very, I don't know what you want to call it, if you want to confess or not. But and then another artist, Chelsea Boxwell, she put sequins on the wall and had disco balls. So you go in there, shut the door, and you're like just surrounded by light. And it was fascinating. So we still do that. But kind of getting back to Shoebox PR, this is like a picture of my monthly get together. A lot of times we have mimosas. We call it AA, Artists Anonymous. But it is a support group for artists. And I talk to people all the time, and I'm like, you can start your own. If you're in a community where you know artists, have a monthly meetup. Do it every 2 months if you want. Just like to get together and talk about, you could talk about, rejection. I mean, that's like the biggest thing that we talk about, rejection. I mean, you have to, as an artist, you have to learn, to create a thick skin. And actually, that gets back to my own body image thing. I say that, and I'm like, I don't know, there must be another way of saying it. But, there's just creating community like this, you need that support network as an artist. And that's how you grow, especially in today's art world. So the other things, let me see if I can back up here. The other things that I've started, Art and Cake. That is my online art magazine. And doing Shoebox PR, I realized that it's very hard to get press for artists. We send out press releases for every show, and it's hit or miss if it gets picked up. It depends on the news cycle, especially, what's going on with politics. People don't want to pick up. During the art fairs, there was no way we were going to get anything written about. So I wanted to, create another opportunity. I'm an art historian also. I got my art history degree at Cal State Northridge, and I taught at Antelope Valley College and Pasadena City College. And so I have that background, and I wanted to be part of the art conversation that was going on. And so I actually pay writers to review shows and to do artist profiles. And I do a weekly calendar of art events pretty much throughout like the LA, even Orange County areas. And it's 2.5, almost 3 years old now. And it just keeps, we get about 1,000 viewers or 1,000 readers a day. So it's really growing, and it's something I'm really proud of. I keep thinking about what I could take off my plate, and people are like, Art and Cake, you could save money. And I'm like, no. Yeah, artandcakela.com. And yeah, it's strictly online. I don't have the resources or the bandwidth to print it out. But and then recently I also am starting January Arts, which is a nonprofit. So it's going slow, and we're, you know, kind of figuring out the nuts and bolts of it. But it's all about community and working within the community and supporting artists, especially artists who, you know, don't have money. I mean, that is the one thing about the art world that I hate, is that oftentimes you need money to get anywhere. I see shows, you know, that people pay for all the time, and I want to be able to offer these projects to artists without having to worry about money. And so that's where January Arts would come in, where we could apply for grants and, you know, get money to support artists. So that's kind of one of my newest ventures. And then I think, let me see, I wanted to show a couple pictures of studio visits, something we do with Shoebox PR, and something every artist should be ready for our studio visits. This is one of our artists, Douglas Tosick Ryder. His studio is in downtown LA. And this is, I mean, if you want an artist studio, I mean, this is like a dream. It's amazing. But he's going to have a show at Jason Voss in May. And that sculpture there on my right is, you can sit in it. I mean, you're going to be able to touch it and sit in his work and stuff. And then this is another artist that just had a show open this last weekend, Leonard Greco, who, his work, he's like an artist. I mean, his work is about passion and poetry, and he's not concerned with the art market. He's like just concerned with making and creating, and he's like this avid reader of like all sorts of literature, and his show is really amazing too. And then another artist that you can see I have pins all over the place for. You may see he has work in, like, these signs are in Laguna. He, like, in different places, public art places, and it's all about like positivity and moving forward. And, you know, especially like the You Are Enough, I look at that all the time because we need to be reminded, you know, which goes back to my body image, everything I'm doing for that. And then I had to share Jane's studio. It's like, you know, you can just, that's what I love about being in the arts and being in the art world, is, you know, seeing like just the creativity of, you know, everything that artists do, and just, I don't know, like living in their minds, you know, their studios. But I actually, and I meant to get it out, I have kind of along the lines of, I have like a manifesto that I normally give, that I normally kind of read to artists. If you're trying to make it in the art world, you know, just some things to be aware of: patience and perseverance. I mean, those are key. You know, the art world is long. I mean, you know, Leonardo da Vinci, they're still finding things out about him, you know, but, you know, just things don't happen overnight. Be easy to work with. I can't tell you how important this is. You know, have everything ready. When you're getting into a show, or when you're going to take work to a show, make sure it's ready to be hung. You know, there's like wire on the back, it's signed, you know, you have all the paperwork, you know, that is key. And, you know, email back right away. I know, you know, I get this a lot, that some people don't like, you know, answering their emails, but every few days, if you're an artist in the art world, or any career really, you need to like check your email at least once a day. You never know what missed opportunities, you know, you're gonna find. So, or what opportunities that, you know, they need somebody right away. Get involved. I always say, like, volunteer, you know, whether it's for the gallery here, whether it's for a magazine, whether it's for like a community organization, you know, it's all about networking and, you know, supporting others and, you know, being part of a community. But you never know like who you can reach and who you'll meet. And, you know, it could be a collector of your work. You never know. Also showing up. I always say, like, going to openings, going to the galleries, you know, when nobody's there, just when they're open, you know, then you have a better chance to talk to the people at the, you know, at the desk. Show up. I went to Cal State Dominguez Hills. There was a show there a few months ago, and my friend Steve and I went. And one of the artists there, she uses resin in her work, and so we started talking, and Steve does resin flooring. She's like, oh my God, I've been wanting to get my floors done. And so Steve gave her a card just like that because he showed up. I mean, you never know, you know, what's gonna happen. I believe generosity begets generosity. I mean, that is like, If you support others, they're going to support you. And I believe like social media, I'm going to touch on that for, a second. If you're not on Facebook or Instagram and you're an artist, you really need to be. I mean, that's where people will find you, especially Instagram. I hear all the time that shows are curated from finding work on Instagram. Collectors are on Instagram. Facebook is about the community, so that's where you're going to meet people. But it goes with supporting, like sharing your friends' posts, sharing your friends' work or exhibitions, or even if you're not going, just say you're interested, because then people will see, and it's just a small thing that you can do to help. Be brave. I mean, I can't say this enough. And I still, try to be so brave in my art, but it's like, just ask. They may say no, whatever it is, but they may also say yes. So, don't be afraid to do that. And be authentic. I mean, I can't stress that enough too. Be yourself. People will see right through you, if it's the art world. So be authentic. And make bad art. I mean, this I actually stole from Kyle Johnson. We did another talk with somebody and I loved it. So I've added it to my manifesto. But, you have to, you're going to make good and bad art, but the bad art is going to help your good art. So you just need to do it, and don't worry about if it's bad or not. Other people may not think so, but just continue to make it. I mean, I always have, I always carry around with me too. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's the, from Sister Karita Kent. It's like the rules for the art studio, and number 7 is the only rule is work. I mean, that is true. You have to continue making art. I mean, that's the most important thing. But read, research. I mean, those are key. Read the art magazines that are out. Read the LA Time reviews. Research artists that you like. Exhibitions. See what they're doing. And, always keep up to date. Have meaningful experiences. I mean, as artists, that's what our art's about. Whether it is from, stories about ourselves, about what's going on in the world. It's about our experiences. Learn to say no. I always say ask, but also learn to say no, and I'm still learning this myself. But, we always have a hard time with that, but it's okay to say no. And it's also okay to say yes. Keep that in mind too. Don't be afraid to ask, and then the only rule is work. And which I kind of mentioned. So that's kind of my manifesto. I normally have a lot more for professional development, but I think to kind of end it before we go into questions, I love this kind of quote from Kurt Vonnegut. Go into the arts. I'm not kidding. The arts are not a way to make a living. They're a very human way of making life more bearable. Practicing an art, no matter how well or badly, is a way to make your soul grow, for heaven's sake. Sing in the shower, dance to the radio, tell stories, write a poem to a friend, even a lousy poem. Do it as well as you possibly can. You will get an enormous reward, and you will have created something. And I just love that. So thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yeah, Adrian.
Destruction, and then preservation.
Yeah.
I'm curious your thoughts on that. Do you see that cycle?
I do, but then it's interesting because, like, I've been thinking about creating new work using cardboard. So it's not necessarily about preservation, because cardboard, you don't know how long that's going to last. And I think a lot about that with I collect work that's on cardboard, and I don't know how long it's going to last. So I know it's in the moment. So I think, even my vacuum sealed bags, I gave them extras for the show because I was afraid some of them, the air would come out. So, you don't know. Those I don't think, are, they are preservation in the moment, but, and I hope it kind of gets the idea across. But I never look at my work as far as like archival or preservation in that sense. So. Any other questions? Oh, yeah. Yeah, acrylic. Mostly Nova Color. If you guys don't know Nova Color, you should. They're in Culver City, and they're amazing. The color is beautiful. I used to use Daniel Smith. They used to create acrylic, and they don't anymore. And I was so bummed. I still have a lot of tubes that I'm hoping are still good, but definitely Nova Color. Yeah, Jane.
I really like your logo picture, your avatar picture with the halo type of it. It's almost like an aura. Halo. Like tell me about how that was done.
Well, it's a painting. I'm standing in front of a painting by Gary Lang, and Tony actually took it. And I don't even know what happened, like what we were thinking, or I think I just thought it would be a cool picture. The actual cool thing is I saw Gary at the LA Art Show 2 or 3 years later at least. And, you know, we were talking, and I don't know if we had ever met or not. Were you there, Tony, when I was talking to him? Oh, okay. And he's like, oh, I have your picture on my desktop. And I thought that was so cute. But then I just saw a picture that Tony took of Gary in front of his painting like that. And I'm like, hey. I know.
It's so optimistic and iconic. It's like inspiring.
And you know, it's it's actually, I strike that pose quite a bit. Maybe it's like a mantra of mine. You can see like in this drawing here, you know, I'm standing with my hands on my hips and looking up. I also am like big into superheroes. I love Marvel and DC. And so, you know, whether it's Wonder Woman or, you know, Superman, or, so maybe it's that, or maybe it's also part of learning to fake it till you make it, you know, like, you know, by looking confident, you know, you'll feel confident. So I think, you know, that's probably a lot of it. And I've had that as I put that as my profile picture on Facebook and Instagram, and I haven't changed it because nothing better has come along, and I can see it every day, and maybe it just gives me the confidence to, you know, continue. And yeah, but thank you. Cool. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
What was the best failure that you learned from?
Oh, gosh. The best failure. You know, and I don't know if it would be a failure. The first thing that comes to my mind, so in Second Life, I did, so my avatar is still in Second Life, and I still go in occasionally, and I do art within Second Life. And if you're not familiar, Second Life is like a video game. So you log in as your avatar, and you can go around to like these different spaces. And where she's standing here, I had a grant through the company that runs Second Life called Linden Labs for 6 months to use their land to create artwork. And within Second Life, you have like your own closet, or it's called an inventory, where you keep everything that you have created. I've been in Second Life since 2006. So I amassed like 50,000 items within Second Life. And I decided to do a performance where I put all of those items onto this land and deleted them. So it kind of goes along with like the shredding and the destruction, and I actually regret that. I didn't think I would, but some of them were like actual artwork only within Second Life, you know, whether it's sculptures or part of what I deleted, and this is a picture at the end. This was like, I got this sign when I first entered Second Life, and it's copyable, so I could probably go and find other copies, but I didn't. But also, this is like Gracie's look, my avatar's look. I love the hair, I love, you know, the chucks, I love everything, and I deleted that too, like her whole look. So she ended up being the avatar with the painted skin. Oops, wait. You know, this is what she ended up being. you know, just the painting. And I still go through pictures and look for her, like I can never find her hair. You know, that is my avatar. That's who I was, who like I went through so much with her in realizing I had an eating disorder. And at the time I joined Second Life, I was working on my master's degree in 2006, and I was suffocating in my real life. And going into Second Life, I met so many people all over the world, like that were in the arts, that were disabled, I have so many friends that are gay that like came out through Second Life. They were able to be themselves. And I was able to be myself as my thin avatar, where I didn't feel free to do that in this body at the time. I realized, like, I've been through counseling for my eating disorder since, of course. Everything I learned within Second Life has made me the person I am today. I curated shows in Second Life. I was the chairperson for a muscular dystrophy organization event that we raised like $500 US for, selling virtual art. I had my own galleries in Second Life. I met so many artists, and it really, like, running a business is because of Second Life, because of my avatar. And so I look back at those pictures of who she was, and I miss her. And, you know, that is probably like the one thing that, I don't know if it's a failure per se, but it's a regret. Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else? Oh, one more?
I have two daughters. One is very tall and blonde and skinny, and the other is beautiful brunette, beautiful skin coloring, like the blonde, my daughters, and me do not have. But she is overweight. And I keep telling her her good points, but I'm not getting through to her.
You know, it's a tough thing. Whether it's society, whether it's your peers, your friends, I grew up with a friend that she looked like, I mean, I don't want to say Barbie. I don't think she'll ever see this, but, you know, she looked like a Barbie. I mean, she had long blonde hair. She was thin, always exercising. And I always compared myself to her because I was always shorter. I was always overweight. I could never wear what she was wearing. I was shopping in plus size. She was wearing size 8 or 10. And I compared myself to her. And I realized, like, that my eating disorder, a lot of that came from her. Plus just other people that I was around growing up who were always dieting, you know, who didn't look like me, who were a lot thinner than me. I'm actually rereading Roxane Gay, Hunger. Oh my God, if you haven't read it, it's powerful and amazing. And she talks about her body and just like her body in relation to others. And, you know, I mean, there's so much. I mean, it's so complicated and so complex as far as like the media, you know, and advertising. But as I've worked through my project with my eating disorder, I did realize that it's more personal than just the media, than just advertising. It does come from like your friends, you know, at school. And a lot of it is even more than that, you know, based on other stuff that's happened in my life. But I know, I wish I could give you better advice.
And she is so brilliant. She has a graduate degree.
Yeah.
She has so many good things, but I can't, I feel like I'm not going to do it. It's big. It deals with like feminism, the role of
Yes.
culture, what is found valuable about women. Yeah, you're supposed to be smart and all this stuff, and well-educated and talented and nice. But the number one thing you're supposed to be in a certain way. And that's like just deadly.
And there's another quote, I was thinking about it on the way here, by, and now I'm not going to remember. It's something like the greatest challenge or the greatest thing you could do is be yourself, you know, amongst other people who are trying to make you, you know, something else. And it's hard. I mean, it really is. You know, whether you're in, I mean, especially being in California, you know, in Southern California. I hear from friends all over the place, whether in Europe or, you know, Texas, who they're like, we don't deal with this stuff like you do. You know, we're in this entertainment, you know, celebrity culture that we're trying to be that. And I actually, one thing I didn't talk about, and I'll touch on just really fast, I shaved my head for a performance art piece. I used to have I had beautiful hair. Oops, am I going the right way? Oh, wrong way. Where is it? Oh yeah. I had thin hair, but it was a lot of it. And it looked like this. And I just realized this was in 2012 that I wanted to talk about how we're not defined by our physical attributes. We're defined by what's within us. And I was at work. I worked in the emergency room at the time, and I swear I came up with the best art ideas there. My brain shifted somehow. I would come home with tons of stickies in my pocket. I'm like, I need to shave my head. It was just like that. Just like I knew I needed to shred my photos, I'm like, I need to shave my head. There was an article on Yahoo, and it was talking about Portia de Rossi, Ellen's wife, shaved her signature locks. Like, that's all she was known for. Or Charlize Theron shaved her head for Mad Max. Like, that was newsworthy. I'm like, really? And so I'm like, I knew it. So like for 2 agonizing months, I waited because I was doing an artist talk like this in performance at a space at the brewery. And I talked with them, and they have a friend who's a barber. And we like did the skit. Nobody knew I was going to do it. So in front of like 40 or 50 people, you know, we were talking about, you know, just like doing a trim or something. I'm like, you know, let's just shave it off. And people in the audience are like, oh my God, what is she doing? And at the end, like, people were like, do it. And it was really, really cool. But at the end, like, I have a picture where I'm holding a mirror and I'm glowing. It was the most freeing thing I have ever done. And that's why I've kept it this way. I mean, I am, you know, like I said, I'm a feminist. I'm against labels. I mean, even though I just call myself a feminist, but, you know, whether it's gender, whether it's, you know, like people think I'm gay, or whether you know, people think I have cancer because of my hair. It's like, why can't I just shave my head because I want to shave my head, you know? And I went back to work in the ER the next day, and there's an older male nurse there, and he's like, grow your hair back. And I'm like, really? And he started calling me G.I. Jane. And I'm like, that's exactly why I did it, you know, for that. And I said, I'm going to keep it, you know, shaved until things change, which probably not in my lifetime, but that's okay because it's easy to do. So, but, you know, it's just, I mean, I'm constantly fighting, you know, struggling with, you know, ideas about my body. And, you know, I've talked about dating, and, you know, and I know we may be running out of time, but one of the reasons I also started my Perceive Me project is, and I talked about this in an article, is that I haven't been asked out very much. And part of it could be the hair, because, you know, guys may think I'm gay. But for me, I've taken that as because I'm overweight and because of my body. And so, you know, I'm learning to work through that too. And it's an ongoing process for sure. But part of the Perceive Me project is about that too, kind of seeing myself in more of a, I don't want to say sexualized, but in like a different light, you know, where I'm seeing my body differently too. So, yeah. So I'm hoping the reason I'm doing this is for your daughter, you know. So, yeah. So, thank you. Oh, yeah, one more? Yeah.
I also have a serious weight problem. Well, I still deal with it. You always deal with it. I think like alcoholism is always there.
Yeah.
But I handled it better in later life than I did really times when you really wanted not to be heavy. But I think it's so valuable to talk about it, bring it out, and share it. So I really give you a bravo.
Thank you. Be brave, you know. Thank you. And that's exactly why I do it. So I hope my story will inspire others and help others. So thank you very much. Thank you. You're welcome. Good to see you.